Is socialism the answer? One 2020 candidate was booed for saying that. It's not. Republican Senator John Kennedy has some advice for his Democratic colleagues on impeachment, and the president is in London.
Team Rising is here. We have Maurice Weeks, who is the co-executive director of the Action Center on Race and the Economy, and Harlan Hill is an advisory board member for Donald Trump for president. He's also the president of the Logan Circle Group. Welcome to you both. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, fellas.
All right, so Hickenlooper, he's one of his, is it 23 now, Jamal?
At least.
At least.
At least.
There are some Democrats who are running for president. You may have heard this, but Hickenlooper is one of them, and well, it's just better if you hear it, and then we'll talk about it. Play it.
Socialism is not the answer. I was reelected in a purple state in 2014, one of the worst years for Democrats in a quarter century. If we're not careful, we're going to end up helping to reelect the worst president in American history.
Socialism, apparently not something you want to mess with in San Francisco, Harlan. A lot of Democrats are pretty upset about socialism is not the answer. That's what he said. They started booing and would not stop.
Well, a few things. This is why Joe Biden, as the front runner, did not go and speak at this convention. He didn't want to face any boos because he's a more moderate candidate. 37% of Americans support socialism in some form, according to the latest Axios poll. And so this is still a minority of Americans. What we're seeing reflected in this convention doesn't reflect the wider Democratic electorate in my mind. It certainly doesn't reflect the group of voters that we're going to have in the general election. And so I would think that it was wise for Biden and it's wise for mainstream candidates that think that they can win to stay above this and to do exactly what Hickenlooper did here and face the fire.
Yeah, I think that segment was kind of like the reverse of what Donald Trump imagined a Fox News debate to be like for when these Democrats go on these town halls. That in fact they would say things and the Fox crowd would boo. But in this instance, it was socialism that got booed by the Democrats. Do you think Democrats are more socialist than they used to be?
Well, I think this definitely indicates where the party is going, and I think it's Donald Trump's dream for us to get into an argument about what socialism is and what socialism isn't.
You think the party is going towards socialism?
I think that when you see policies like the Green New Deal and Medicare for All, these are things that are policies that are for all people and to rise all boats. So you can call those socialist policies if you want to. I don't think any of the candidates are running as explicit socialists.
Bernie Sanders is running as a Democrat.
Even Bernie Sanders is not saying that the government should control all means of production or anything like that. These aren't socialist things. This is exactly the kind of debate that Donald Trump wants Democratic politicians to get into. And I think Hickenlooper really faced where the party is at. These things like Green New Deal and Medicare for All are the price of admission right now.
Democrats never admit that they're going for socialism. They didn't do this with Obamacare. They said, "Oh no, we don't want Medicare for all. We're just trying to solve the healthcare crisis in the interim." And it's always this slow trickle that's actually accelerating towards socialism. And so it's not that we're getting in a debate about whether this is socialism or not. Government-funded healthcare, Medicare for all, guaranteeing a social safety net of access to healthcare for every citizen is socialism. Period.
And
so that's not a debate. That's not my opinion. That's a fact.
Yeah, and a reminder that Medicare for all is one of the more popular things in the Democratic base. The Green New Deal is extremely popular in the Democratic base. Mm-hmm. So Hickenlooper is really facing what the base is up against. I think that's exactly the reason that Biden didn't go to the California convention. Mm-hmm. And look, I mean, we talk about California as if it's some super left place. Let's remember that Hillary Clinton won California by probably 200, 300,000 votes. Very far from a socialist candidate. This is just where the party is right now. And I think we're going to continue to see this in events that are coming up.
Let's also remember that Elizabeth Warren said, "I am a capitalist." So
that's
she's often derided as someone
who makes $1 million a year. So with her husband, that's the combined income.
Right.
So
she wants a robust capitalism.
It's good that she's a capitalist. It's good. She's a rich lady. Harlan,
you guys like rich ladies.
Trump, when they're capitalists. Trump visited the UK, and there was this whole there are a couple of back and forths here. One is with Sadiq Khan, who Trump called foolishly, he's the mayor of London, by the way, called him foolishly nasty on Twitter. This comes after the president was at Buckingham Palace. Trump also said that Khan reminds him very much of our very dumb and incompetent mayor of New York City, de Blasio, who's also done a terrible job, only half his height. In any event, I look forward to being a great friend of the United Kingdom, and I'm looking very much forward to my visit landing now. So the Trump tweets, they do kind of speak for themselves, Harlan. And what do you make of this?
Well,
Is Trump being Trump?
Yeah, I mean, also I would say that Sadiq Khan's record speaks for itself. I mean, terrorism is excused in London under this mayor. Crime is way up, not just in terms of knife crime, but also gun violence. The guy is a terrible mayor, and he has political aspirations beyond just being mayor of London. You know, I think when the Labour Party is resurgent, he thinks that he could be prime minister. So, you know, the president's taking a swing at him here. This is classic Trump. He's never going to change. I was watching CNN before I came over here, and they're all up in arms. How could he do this as he's flying into the airport to be, you know, greeted by?
Sadiq Khan's not a head of state. Like he's a mayor. Who cares?
And Sadiq Khan's taken swings at the president numerous times, and so they have a feud. And this is what Trump does.
No free licks. No free licks.
Gotta take a swing. Gotta take a swing at Trump with the tweet. You better be ready for the counter tweet.
No free licks. Maurice,
That's right.
Maurice, there's a question here, which is not really about whether or not he's a head of state. The question to me is about the President of the United States on the global stage representing the country at a really important moment going to see the Queen. Is this an appropriate way that we think the President of the United States should behave when he's
Absolutely
going abroad?
not. I mean, and this goes against all conventions of what we should be doing, what the president should be doing. I checked this morning on Twitter. Trump is an international disgrace is trending on Twitter. These aren't the things that we want the president to be sort of pushing forward. You know, we saw this too with Trump wading into who should take over after Theresa May steps down. These are things that are not things that presidents have done in the past. We see it here. We see it all around the world, and I think it's a huge problem. And it's going to be a problem for Trump in 2020 as well, as folks look back and see how heavily he's playing internationally when he shouldn't be.
Barack Obama tried to intervene in the Israeli elections against Netanyahu.
He did?
Yes, he did, repeatedly. Well, there was an intelligence operation that has been declassified that you can go and you can read about, where we tried to influence the outcome of the election there. He also spoke out publicly against Netanyahu in the Israeli elections, trying to sway that. So there is actually precedent here, but of course, because Obama did it, he gets a free pass. Of course.
Do you think that there's similarity between Trump tweeting insults at world leaders and Obama?
Obama said plenty of negative things about Netanyahu because they had an acrimonious relationship.
I'd love to go back and look at the tweets.
At it.
Look at the
Look,
tweets.
go back to when
Obama wore tan suits.
Go back to when Netanyahu addressed Congress without the invitation of the president.
Is that what we're talking about here?
And Obama was all bent out of shape about it.
Well, the other thing is the Meghan Markle comment that got a lot of attention over the weekend too. Do we? You know, we don't even have that one, do we? Meghan Markle, they tried to bait Trump into saying something about her, and then he said he didn't know that she was so nasty. And I think that the debate was that she had been nasty or that she was nasty as a person. So this is kind of open to interpretation. But this became another, the president's time for pearl clutching, Harlan.
I think, you know, the Queen would probably agree with the president if you read anything in the tabloids about her relationship with Meghan Markle.
Really?
Yeah, it's a nasty relationship. The inter-palace drama is at an all-time high. So
I think it shows a lot of dysfunction that the president himself had to come out and clarify whether he said that she was nasty or didn't say that she was nasty. I just really wish that we had a president where we didn't have to clarify all of these things the day after they're said via tweet.
You'll get your chance to cast a vote not too long from now.
I will say I think that Trump was baited into this comment the other day. In a rare moment of agreement here, I do think that Trump was baited into this comment the other day by the Sun reporter. However, this morning he chose to double down on it when in his tweets about Sadiq Khan. It's amazing that instead of saying, like, trying to move on and be above it all, the president is never above it all. He's just the most petty person that we've ever seen in the White House.
But for years, people have said, "Oh, why can't Trump move past this? Why can't he stay on message?"
He
it never
won.
really hurts him.
He's
it
a
never
star
hurts
winner.
him. Well, and his polling is remarkably constant. So I mean, his approval rating under 50. Yeah, but it's constant, and it really, I mean, if he gets 3% of undecideds, he wins the election.
All right. Well, let's. Speaking about Trump, impeachment is an issue that's going to continue to get a lot of play here. You had Senator John Kennedy, who had this advice to his fellow Democrats.
My advice to my Democratic friends is, if you want to do it, go hard or go home. You know, if you want to do it, go to Amazon online, buy Spine, and do it. But go hard or go home. If you're not going to do it, then let us get back to work.
Harlan, I think there's actually a more important point here than the senator even meant to make, which is that you can't go back and forth between this is the most obvious case for impeachment in decades, and it needs to happen for the good of the republic, but we got to see what the polling looks like and whether Nancy Pelosi is willing to actually go forward with this or not, because there could be some blowback from it. I mean, it's one or the other.
Yeah, do you have a constitutional duty to defend the republic against someone that's a tyrannical dictator that's abusing the Constitution, or are you driven by the politics of the day? Right? And they haven't clearly defined which of these routes they're going to take. But, and, you know, if you want
Would you like him to be impeached? You think it's
go for it.
Not like him. You think it's a political plus?
If they want to do it, go for it. They've been trying to build the case for impeachment since before the president even won the election. They've been planting seeds of doubt about the legitimacy of the Trump presidency before he even won in November 2016. So if 3 years into this process you still can't articulate why this guy is an illegitimate president, then when are we going to get it?
The other side of that coin, of course, is that Trump has been leaving breadcrumbs to impeachment since before he was elected president. And, you know, I really think that...
400 pages of it.
That's right, yeah.
But,
so there's 400 pages of evidence, of course.
Give me something.
So
We'll do it later. I got it.
You can find, just
like
Google,
10 counts.
Google the Miller Report online. There's
Yes.
lots of it. So I think that Pelosi's really in a bind here because there's a groundswell. It started just as a couple of different congressmen, and now it's really rising up, and lots of folks are increasing the call for impeachment. At the end of the day, I think, you know, the rule of law is the rule of law. If the evidence is there, which it seems like it is, that high crimes were committed, that we should move forward with impeachment. And I think that Pelosi's going to come around, and that's what's going to happen.
I will have to say before we get out of this, Senator Kennedy, this is why he's so dangerous, because he says these things with that drawl, and it's also folksy, and you sit here and you're like, yeah, that sounds like it really makes sense. Republicans are really good. The Southerners are really good at like
Sure,
putting
yeah.
the iron fist in the velvet glove.
If you have the right Southern accent, everying sounds like Whitney.
It does. And if you're British, everything sounds like.
Tell me the weather. Yeah, well, everything
That's
sounds
right,
like you're like a neuroscientist. But if you're Southern, it's like, man, it's sunny today. It's like, oh. Anyway, gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Coming up, a new drink could dance its way across your taste buds. Obama's latest post-presidential activity and sitting courtside at the NBA Finals.
And enjoy your last grooves on your iTunes account. We'll tell you why before we go.